Hello and welcome to Q Primary Presents Intentional Tech. I am your host, Kayla Harlow, a former first grade teacher, ed tech advocate, yet limited screen time parent. Today's episode has me busting at the seams with passion. It is such an important message, and I am so excited to be able to share it with you. Today, we're going to be delving in honor of National Reading Month and Read Across America Day, to the Right to Read documentary by Jenny McKenzie. I have special guests who take part in this advocacy throughout the documentary and throughout their work that they continue to do in the California classrooms. So before we jump into our interview with Sabrina Causey and Jess Sliwerski, I want to have you get a snippet of what really drove my passion to getting them on the show. So here's a quick trailer of the Right to Read documentary.
Millions of American kids struggle to read.
We should succeed in seeing that every 8-year-old can read independently.
When I first started teaching in Oakland, there were only 2 kids in my class of 35 who could read.
Larry and to the cat.
My man Larry, I'm gonna say this right now on tape. My man Larry just read his first sentence by himself, and I'm very, very proud of him.
We have a lot of people who struggle to read. Why aren't we screaming and yelling about this?
In 35 years, we have gone backwards, not forwards.
It is a national problem that cuts across demographics, but it's painted as a minority issue.
For as long as I can ever remember, I've wanted to be a teacher. This school is the lowest performing in reading in the district.
So this is a civil rights issue. We're really trying to figure out how to get Oakland kids to read.
Reading is everything. That's the foundation to everything in this life.
It has been said that illiteracy is one of the most solvable issues of our time.
What letter is it? What? Yeah.
Everybody deserves the right to read. Literacy is for all.
We want to make sure that all students have the opportunity to be with a teacher who has learned the science of reading in order to crack the code of reading.
Question is today, do we have the political will and do we have the moral courage and fortitude to use literacy as a vehicle to include all? This is social justice.
I hope that snippet of the Right to Read moved you as much as it moved me. Now we're going to jump into our conversation with Jessica Sliwerski and Sabrina Causey about their work that they are currently doing. A side note is that the Right to Read is going to be available for free streaming from March 2nd to March 9th. So by airtime, that will be tomorrow. And you can gain access through the show notes through the access link that you will see there. All right, without further ado, hi Sabrina, hi Jessica. Thanks for joining us today. I am so excited to really bring to light the conversation around the Right to Read movie, documentary, and the work that the two of you are doing. So to start off, Sabrina, can you just kind of describe what your current role in education is?
Yes, so I am a first grade teacher in Oakland Unified. I've been at my current school for 5 years, and yeah, that's it.
Nice. Where were you prior to that?
I've been at the same school for all 5 years of my career so far.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And I know that you and Jess have a very unique relationship, kind of the stars aligned. I'll let either one of you kind of explain, how did you two get involved? And I mean, you're somewhat of a dream team from my experience of the work that you guys have been doing.
Yeah, so I got an email a couple years ago. I got an email that just said there is a volunteer looking to work in schools. It was from my union rep at my school. She's a veteran teacher. And it said, are any of you interested? And at that point in time, I was struggling with classroom management and was begging administration to help and my mentor teacher to help. And they just couldn't. There were too many problems at my school. So I was like, yes, send me anybody. And I thought that it was just going to be, like a random person off the street, like a parent or something that wanted to come into the classroom and like,
I mean,
read.
technically she is a random person off the street that's a parent. Yes.
I thought they were just going to like come and like, I don't know, read a book to my kids in the afternoon, but I was like, whatever, another body, a human that can help me. But it was Jess, and she had curriculum that she wanted to teach and pull groups, and I was like, absolutely, please. And then she was trying to pull groups and saw that my classroom management was garbage. And so like we restructured my whole classroom, and then once that was under control, I was like, well, I want to learn what you're doing so that I can also pull groups and we can get as many students as possible. And so I started also teaching the differentiated instruction reading groups alongside her. And then I found out there was a shared reading portion. I was like, oh, well, what is that? Show me that. And whole groups phonics. And then she's like, yeah, and there's ELA too. And I was like, well, give it to me. Like, let's do this. And so we just kept layering it on, and we've been together, happily married ever since.
Love that. And before we dive deeper into kind of how the film came about and your history there, Jess, I want you to explain kind of what your role in education is and how you got involved in Sabrina's classroom.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kayla. I have the biggest smile on my face because I'm just so happy to see Bree, and every time I see her, I'm just like, wow, you've grown up so much, Grasshopper. So I come into this space as an educator. I've been in education for about 20 years now, and I started my career as a 5th grade teacher in the Bronx. I taught for 2 years in the Bronx before becoming a 1st grade teacher in Harlem. And it was in my 3rd year of teaching that I learned to teach kids to read. And it was an anomaly that I even learned to teach students to read in my 3rd year of teaching. And, fast forward to when I was living then in Oakland. I had become a parent. I had a daughter that I was teaching to read, and I'm looking around at my community, and I'm looking at, the national landscape of education as a whole, and nothing had really changed since when I first started teaching reading. But I had changed, in that I had since dedicated my career to learning as much as I could about teaching kids to read and moving through different layers of school and district leadership and really understanding the system at a national level, co-founding an ed tech company with a literacy app I designed. And then the point at which I met Sabrina, I was running a national nonprofit that publishes curriculum. And one of the curricula in my portfolio was this incredible program called Bookworms. And I was using it to teach my daughter to read. And I was trying to also help TK and 1st graders at my daughter's public school learn to read, and very quickly was told to stop what I was doing, and that if I wanted to volunteer, the only thing I was allowed to do was guided reading. And I said to the principal, you want me to do something that is not effective when what the students here need and what the teachers are asking for help with is structured literacy. And she said, I am telling you that you have to do the district mandated curriculum, and that is guided reading. And I said, I refuse to do that. And so as a result, I wasn't allowed to volunteer at my daughter's school. And I reached out to the volunteer office at the district and said, I know how to teach kids to read. There is a crisis in our community. I can help. Can you please find me a school where the principal is okay with my help and where I can ensure that kids in the school learn how to read? And they connected me with Bree. And because I was at a point in my career where I was running my own company, I had the ability to rearrange my entire schedule so that I could spend 4 afternoons a week in her classroom and helping her teach her students to read.
What a blessing for the both of you, because I know that Sabrina has had a huge impact on where your company has gone and your experience thus far. And talking about curriculum and adopted curriculum, a quote that we had previously talked about, Jess, was because there's a lot of talk around the controversy of reading wars and such, but it's not that we're against balanced literacy in the definition, because that is what it should be, the balance of the 5 pillars. It's just how it's interpreted and the rigid format in which adopted curriculum is implemented sometimes. And that's where Sabrina has done a really good job in taking an adopted curriculum that doesn't necessarily align with structured literacy practices and implementing or supplementing with different resources to support that. So Sabrina, can you talk a little bit more about, I know you said you do bookworms. We talked about how you integrate technology a little bit with one tab. I'm kind of just going to open the field for the two of you to discuss. That was where we were. Where are you going now in continuing the conversation and your practices in supporting your students? It's a loaded question.
Yeah. What exactly is your question? I'm sorry.
It's okay. So we had talked about how you were supplementing curriculum with bookworms and things like that outside of your adopted curriculum. Can you talk about how you fit that into your day and what you prioritize in regards to the structured literacy practices?
Yeah. Okay. So, as you said, I'm supplementing because the district currently uses, or we've currently adopted a new curriculum that does follow the science of reading. So I am using that, but it's not super teacher friendly in many ways, which I won't get into. So I still do supplement that curriculum with bookworms. I use the whole group phonics portion of it, and which neither of the adopted literacy curriculums have. So I supplement it with whole group phonics and then a shared reading portion as well. And yeah, I'm still doing that every single day for about an hour a day. And then I give them written responses that align with that, as well as the small group work for about an hour and 10 minutes for differentiated reading instruction.
And why we had talked about how the data was proving that you were successful with that, it was paying off, the teamwork that you and Jess are putting in to the curriculum that you were supplementing with, along with classroom management and technology. What data program are you guys using to measure that?
So my school uses Dibbles, but then I also use, just based on what group they're in, you can see where they're supposed to be at and where they're at. So there are so many skills that you're supposed to learn in kindergarten, and if the students are in that group, then they're still like in kindergarten level. And then there are so many skills that you're supposed to learn in first grade. And I basically, if they're in that group, I know what part of the year or where they're at based on that group. Yeah. And then Dibbles and also SIPS mastery test go into the district. So I still give those just so that everybody can see the growth that my students are making.
Fabulous. And how do you think that those compare to other, not necessarily other teachers in your school, but other teachers in the district that are not supplementing with structured literacy practices? Do you think that there's a clear difference?
So you said not in my school or not in my district?
Well, I mean, just because this is a safe conversation.
Yeah. So the curriculum that my school and the district has adopted, they are structure of literacy, or they are science of reading. So, and structured literacy. Okay. So students other than my own are getting instruction in SIPS, which is science of reading. The only reason that I'm not doing SIPS, and I'll throw myself out there, I don't care. The only reason I'm not doing SIPS is because the lessons take 30 minutes. I have, in my class alone, skill ranges from don't know all of their letter names and sounds to reading fluently. They're working on fluency and comprehension. They have all of the basic skills. So such a wide range of skill difference. So right now I have, let's say, 6 groups of students at different skill levels. And so if I were to pull 6 different groups for 30 minutes, like how in my day am I supposed to do that?
Yeah.
That's why I don't teach SIPs. It doesn't work. And we're supposed to have SIPs tutors. We're supposed to have 2. We have 1. And they were pulling groups in my class for a little bit, and then they decided they wanted to put their efforts towards TK, so they're not even pulling out of my class. So there's absolutely no way I could fit that into my schedule. The differentiated read instruction that I use, the groups take 15 minutes. So I can fit 4 groups into an hour, but because I've been using it for so long, I've got it down to I can get 5 groups out in an hour. I just tested and now I have like 6 groups, but it's okay. That I can get 5 groups out in an hour. So all of my students are getting exactly what they need in that hour, versus if I were to pull 4 groups in like an AB schedule, I'd get half of my class one day and half on Monday and Wednesday, and half of my class on Tuesday and Thursday. And so they're getting half of the reading instruction that they could be getting, or instead of what they could be getting, which is what I'm currently teaching.
Awesome. Thank you for the thorough response. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that the district has moved towards a science of reading curriculum. I know during the pandemic, when you first 2 started, they were still using a very balanced literacy aligned program, yet you were still able to supplement. And that's a big conversation I have with teachers, is doesn't necessarily matter what curriculum your district has, you can still take steps forward in implementing structured literacy practices and routines to meet those kids where they need. So there's 2 more areas I want to delve into. We'll see if we have time for both, or we can kind of play around with it. The first is going to be what role technology plays in how you support those students, because I know you're in a low SES school. And the second would be diving a little bit more into the right to read film and what potential that has to make a difference on educators' perspectives, administrators' perspectives, etc. So let's start with technology. What role has that played in being able to provide more accessibility for your students in their literacy practices?
Yeah, so I think it played a huge role during the pandemic, obviously, because everything was online. But that's when sorry, I'm totally taking up all this space, Jess. If you want to talk, you can just jump in. But so when the pandemic hit, Jess and I worked together to raise money, get donations to order 1-tabs for every single student in my class, which is a device that has reading and math curriculum on it. Doesn't need Wi-Fi, and they can't do anything else on it. So it's not like an iPad where they could leave that website and get on YouTube or something. It's just the curriculum. They do a little test at the beginning, and it puts them right at the level that they're at so that they can access, the curriculum at their level. So we did a huge fundraiser for that and got those out to every student in my class. I have leftovers that we still use in my class during that small group time. So when I'm pulling small groups, students are using those 1-tabs and they're accessing reading and math curriculum at their level. My school also uses iReady. So, and that it's kind of the same. They can access curriculum at their level, reading and math. The only thing with that is that it's on iPads or computers, and I have to have a little spy go around and make sure that they're on what they're supposed to be on and not on, they like to get on maps and just like zoom in.
Yeah, I was going to say classroom management is a whole nother conversation when it comes to littles and technology.
Exactly. And I'm trying to like put all of my energy into my small group. So it's really been good to have the 1-tabs for that reason. But also a lot of kids do enjoy the iReady as well, just not as much as the 1-tabs. So
are you using I know they're potentially coming out with or already have a dyslexia screener. Do you guys have any access or exposure to that?
No, not at my school.
Yeah, no, I'm not very familiar with it. It's just come up in conversation. So awesome. All right, let's jump into the movie and kind of, we know your history. We know how you guys got connected. What impact do you think? I've seen the movie. This is why we are connected, because it's fabulous and supports a message that so many people need to hear, whether they think they know the need for equitable and accessible literacy or not. I think it's an eye opener for everyone. So I'm gonna kind of just open it up. And what impact do you think that this movie coming out to the public is going to have on educators and administrators, specifically probably in California, but I mean, it's across the board.
Yeah, so I can sorry. So actually, since it started to come out slowly in like private screenings around the state, I've had people come up to me, or I might mention it in passing, and they say, "Oh yeah, I saw it," or "My principal saw it." For instance, there was this sub at our school, and I was talking about the documentary, and she said, "Oh yeah, I've been preaching science of reading for years to my principal, but we've been a balanced literacy school, but he just saw the documentary at a screening and has changed his mind completely, and is like, we've got to get balanced literacy out, we've got to get structured reading in." So that's just like one tiny example of how, I guess, effective the documentary is.
Yeah.
I know that people like non-educators have no idea that there's a reading crisis. And I think
even think some educators don't even realize the extent of what's going on in the statistics, especially if you're in a certain isolated demographic area.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of teachers are, as I've heard, are very pro balanced literacy, because that's what they've had for so long. That's what they're used to. And that's the curriculum that they like. And I think that it might be shocking to see that it's not serving like a number of students. And it's not just the Black and brown students, it's the white students too. It's just that when their curriculum fails them at their school, then they come to me.
They have the resources to hire independent tutors or independent help. No, I think when I think of the movie, I think of a quote by Dale Carnegie, and it's people move towards what moves them. And I think that's exactly what the documentary does, is it opens up your mind to like, wow, this is like such a bigger issue than just they can't read or they're going to be behind. We talk about the school to prison pipeline, things like that. So I completely agree with you. And I'm happy to hear that little snippet of a story. And then also, I think there's a lot around this reading wars and a lot of balanced literacy advocates. It's more, you don't know what you don't know. Like, it's not everyone that's in education is in education to have a positive impact on children, right? Like, we can all agree on that. So it's just the approach the documentary takes is kind of uniting all of us and really showing the statistics and the data and the larger impact that illiteracy can have. Jess, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think when it comes to this crisis, we need as many different voices highlighting the problem as possible. So to have a film like the Right to Read film, to have advocates like Sabrina Causey and Kareem Weaver doing the work all day, every day, whether it's at a policy level like Kareem is working, or being in the trenches the way that Sabrina is, or building a program that's a foundational skills safety net, like what I'm doing now with Ignite Reading, or the Soul to Story podcast that Emily Hanford has out there. You need as many people as possible talking about it, and it needs to be bigger than a gut feeling that so many of us as educators had over the years, that this isn't right, something's not right here, something's not working. And now it's out there, it's in the open, and we're all talking about it. And it creates an opportunity collectively as educators for us to know better and do better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because these are kids, right? Like what this ultimately comes down to is an equity issue, an access issue. And I just so appreciate the framing that Jenny McKenzie brings to the film and really centering equity in all of this.
Absolutely. And if anyone has followed me before, I don't even know if this is a Kareem quote. I think it was just in conversation at one of the screenings. And he said, what good is the right to vote if you can't read the ballot? And that was like that's one sentence that just purely outlines literacy as a civil right, and why we need to make sure that we are advocating for the best practices for all kiddos. Awesome. Well, I appreciate both of your times. By the time this airs, I think I had it written down, but now I lost it. But this Right to Read documentary is going to be available for public screening online for the first time for 1 week only, I believe from March 2nd to the 9th. And I will link the access form in the show notes so that you can see it for yourself, because it truly for me is life-changing. And I think as many people should see it as possible, whether that's kids, parents, grandparents, anyone in our community is a stakeholder in education and has an investment there. So thank you guys for joining me. I love it. And I hope that we can continue the conversation. And thank you for all the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to today's show of Q Primary Presents Intentional Tech. If you have yet to sign up for Spring Q, you can sign up at springq.org. I hope to see you there. All resources mentioned in today's show can be found at kaylaharlow.com/podcast.